lie about that. Next beat. That ain't the beat I want to do.
Those was wood
another
beats
beat.
right
Another
there.
beat.
You know?
Nope. Give me another beat. Give me another beat. Nope. That's not it. That's the beat. Turn it up.
Oh, word.
Turn it up. I gotta hear it a little louder. Can you make it louder than my headphones? Turn me up in my headphones. I'm still stuck in the 80s/90s. Lottos, kangaroo boots, nanny ghosts, Velas, jumpsuits and troops, Junos, color Levi's, Bugs Bunny sweaters with the rhinestone ring on it. Fighting and making up the next day. Nobody getting shot. Working and hustling to get it, or get got. We had love for the streets, our family, our foes, our friends. Respect for the elderly. Pager/payphone, sneaking into Adams Theater. Watching Crush grooving tougher than leather. Hopping gates out the college port to bang out, cause you don't wanna get caught at mom's crib or at Vaughn's crib. Eating funny dinner with the fam. Church every Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m. And even if I fell asleep in the back row or played sick, no matter what, man, I still had to go 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. 80s, baby.
Thank you all for joining us in this special early edition of the Xcast, webisode number 74 of the Xcast, to be exact. It's day 4987 in the search for Tim Shovelday. I'm your host, Josh Houselander. With me, as always, the heart and soul of everything here in the Empire of Media, Adam Hernandez. How's it going, Adam?
I'm doing good tonight, man. Just little weird being on earlier, but it's a big show.
No, it is. You know, I mean,
tonight.
this show is weird. It's kind of a spur of the moment show. We're going on earlier. This is a very different format for us than a lot of our shows in the past, but we have a special guest, and this specific episode is basically a one-issue episode. We have a special guest, Bill Mitchell, with us tonight, who has come under fire with a lot of controversy lately in the world of competitive gaming. He is known for starring in the movie The King of Kong. Some would call it a documentary. It's maybe not quite a true documentary. And he is also the first man to do the perfect Pac-Man score, among other video game feats.
And the first one to kill screen Donkey Kong, wasn't he?
He was, he was the guy kill screening it, you know, way back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily fair to say that he was the first one.
Hey, you know what?
I could be wrong either way, though. That's debatable. First one to kill screen it in world record form, yes, definitely. And you know, whether somebody else was out there doing it, not in world record form, we don't know that.
And we also have Joel West.
We do. We have Joel West, but first we're going to focus on Billy Mitchell, and then we're going to move on to Joel West. Are they with us now?
Yeah. Billy, Joel, you there?
No, I left a few minutes ago. The show was boring.
that is.
I'm behind the door over here.
That is Bill Mitchell, the one and only. Listen, Bill, we're going to get right down to it. There's been a lot of strife, a lot of tumultuous stuff going on in the world of competitive gaming. The subculture is up in arms. Before we even ask any questions, before we get anything, I want to hear from you. What exactly is the crux of this dispute? And how do you see it from your point of view?
Well, the crux of this dispute is that I get the Donkey Kong scores that I got. Now, bear in mind that with Donkey Kong in the mix, the last time I submitted a score was in the year 2010, 8 years ago. So you can see, if you pull Donkey Kong out of the mix, the last time I submitted a score was before the year 2000. So submitting scores in world records is definitely the least important thing that I do. Not only is it one of the lesser important things I do in my everyday life, it is certainly one of the lesser important things I do in the world of video games and all the fun and silliness that I have attributed to that. To go to an earlier point that you, Josh, and your counterpart here were mixed up on, yes, the first kill screen was in 1982 on Donkey Kong, about a year, slightly under a year after it came out. I did a kill screen. I did it at Life magazine. I did it inside Twin Galaxies. I did it in front of what was considered to be the 16 best video game players at that time. And it was nearly 2 decades later before it happened again. To
lend some light into how long ago that was, my co-host Adam, I cannot say this myself, but my co-host Adam was not born when you first kill screen Donkey Kong.
Right.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Josh.
yeah. He's what we would refer to as a junior Donkey Kong. So.
Anyway, please continue.
But the fact of the matter is, that was the first event. That was the first time. It was there. It was live. It was real. It had such feeling and such emotion that every time I did a score, I wanted that same environment. And so all the other scores or accolades that I had attributed to me through the 80s were either at Twin Galaxies or at a Twin Galaxies event. And it pretty much stayed like that. To be honest, nothing was ever recorded except the fact that the media cameras that were following us, that were following, say, the Life magazine story, they certainly recorded what they did. But video, I mean, the videos just weren't that good. But eventually, in 1999, what we would call the rebirth of classic gaming, that brought me to FunSpot. And there at FunSpot, and we're going to talk about Grand Prix. When you hear me say the word Grand Prix, that's another word for boomers. It was originally called Grand Prix. And the difference is, I was thinking about it today, and I didn't realize it till today, that the situation at FunSpot was not a whole lot different than the situation at Grand Prix in 2010. The game was supplied by an arcade or a distributor. The situation was announced, and the location obviously was announced. And it's kind of interesting that when this attempt was going to be done and people knew about it, I got up there and I arrived early, and everything was already prepared. In the case of FunSpot, Gary had everything prepared. Quite honestly, he was terrific. Grand Prix had everything prepared. The recordings were set up. The area was roped off. A lot of people smarter than me set up the situation to be recorded. They set up the game settings to make sure that they were on the proper setting. And the fact of the matter is, I wasn't even a caretaker of the surroundings. And, when I finally gained success, when that good news finally came to me, I mean, there were scores of people there to congratulate me. There was media. I did a few interviews. There was, the obvious fun stuff of, hugs and handshakes and all that silly stuff. I was there for hours afterwards. And, I was interacting with people. So I sat here and I realized today that what happened at FunSpot with Perfect Pac-Man was not a whole lot different than what happened at Grand Prix. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even in charge of the recording there at FunSpot. Again, I didn't even own a camera. So it was only through the kindness of other people that all of that came to be. At no time was the recording of what was going on there ever meant to be a means of verification in any circumstance. It wasn't at all. The recordings were fun. They were silly. They were extras. They were to be used later in different promos and things like that. The distributor brought the game. In the case of Grand Prix, it arrived hours or even a day before me. It was set up by the tech, the game settings, which is easy. It was factory settings. That didn't take a rocket scientist. And the recording method was verified by Rob and by Twin Galaxies. Pete Bouvier lived only 5 miles from Grand Prix, the world's largest arcade at the time. Yet he didn't know those people. This was his introduction to them. So this was an important time for him.
Pete Bouvier being the person
Twin Galaxies.
Yeah, he took over ownership from, of course, Walter Day.
Yeah, that's correct. The room cameras, they were important because they were there to preserve the event and to later be used as original footing, film footage. That was actually Pete's idea. A little bit of forethought. When I played, there was a 9-foot tripod that was looking down on the game area. That 9-foot tripod that looked down on the game area. It recorded what went on in the room. It recorded what people were there in the room. And that's something that's important that I hope turns up. And I have ideas where it is, and I'll get to that later. But when I finished, when I finish Donkey Kong, okay, when I was fortunate enough to do it, and I certainly didn't do it on my first game, okay, but when I was fortunate enough to do it, there was the usual. There was the handshakes and the hugs, and there was, congratulations, sir, you finally did it. If you can recognize that voice. Okay, I think I got him down pretty good too.
So I think let me go back to something you had said, Bill. So what you were saying, and this is an important part for people that not everyone out there understands exactly how Twin Galaxies functions. So when I say things that seem to you like I'm making them dumb or obvious, well, they may not be obvious to all the listeners.
Like me.
Yeah, or to the producer. So what you're saying is that these records, although there may be some videotape footage here and there and everywhere, were verified by referee, correct? And not by videotape.
Right. The very best, the very strongest record you could produce, for example, back in the old days, if you did a record and you did it at Twin Galaxies, it couldn't even be disputed.
Right.
Okay? I mean, it's a shut-up kind of situation. To go back to that day, when Guinness first began accepting world records, it says right in the book, you can look, it's 1984 edition, it says every joystick, every button, every game, every monitor, whatever it says is different. Therefore, we will only accept scores that are done under contest conditions or observations. So unless you did it at Twin Galaxies or you did it at a Twin Galaxies event, it was not even considered a world record. For example, for the longest time, it would appear the world record on Donkey Kong was 874, 300. And the fact of the matter is, I had scored far, far higher than that on that game and all the other games that I had records on. But unless you did it under the right circumstances and in the right venue, it didn't count. Videotapes were as important as nothing. That changed. I don't know when it changed, maybe around the year 2000 or around the time you would call the rebirth of video games. Then people started sending in tapes. And then, of course, eventually things got online with the internet.
Sure.
And so those were the original. I'll have somebody say to me, they'll go, boy, it shows your high score on Donkey Kong Jr.'s 957, 300. And I go, yeah. And they go, but I saw you score higher at Grand Prix that time. And I would have to go through the explanation as to why. And, well, that is what it is. I didn't make the rules. I followed the rules. But anyway,
years ago, Billy,
as I was saying,
when I was interviewing you years ago, I'm going back to an analogy you used that I really liked. Was this an interview? Or no, maybe you said this in one of the movies. I don't even recall, to tell you the truth. But perhaps you probably said it more than once. But you used the analogy of if Tiger Woods goes out tomorrow with his buddies and breaks the record of how many strokes you get in an 18-hole course, it doesn't matter. He didn't do it on TV. He didn't do it in the realm of the PGA. So it doesn't really matter what he shoots with his buddies. That's not the world record. The world record needs to be proved and verified. And that's how Twin Galaxies existed.
If he goes out and golfs at 59, it doesn't matter. Yeah, he can golf at 59 and he can put that feather in his cap. When he does it at Augusta, okay, then he can put his name in lights. The Donkey Kong world record was, even that, without lying to you, is very unimportant. When Robbie Lakeman goes to the Kong off and wins, yes, put that in lights. Mm-hmm. He did it there. He did it under pressure. He did it with eyes on him. And he did it when he had to do it. So therefore, my hat would be off to Robbie Lakeman, as opposed to anybody else in the world, including myself, at any other score, at any other point. You're exactly right. It doesn't matter how fast somebody runs the 100-meter dash. Go in the Olympics and beat Mr. Bolt. And it doesn't matter what time you get, you'll be the champion. And I do. I believe that completely.
Now, Bill, one of the things in question in this controversy right now is a specific tape that some are analyzing and saying is MAME footage or other things. Have you ever played Donkey Kong on MAME?
Well, my easy answer is that I've never played it on MAME, but I'll give you a more serious answer. When we were in California, there was a company called Arcade PC, owned by Conway. And the fact of the matter is, all of his games were MAME games. All of them. He had 5,000 games in the cabinet. Mm-hmm. And many of the people involved in gaming and competition remember Conway and remember him well and fondly. So the fact is, for me to say, gee, I never played MAME. The first time I ever played against Steve Wiebe was at the Classic Game Expo in 2000, was it 5 or 4 in San Jose? And that was on Conway's Donkey Kong. And that was a MAME machine with a computer inside. Mm-hmm. So the fact is, have I ever played MAME? Well, if we push that kind of circumstance aside, the answer is no. Have I ever sat at a computer and played MAME? Not a chance. None.
Because as far as I can tell, I'm not a tech guy, and I know you're not a tech guy either, Bill, and I have no desire to get into the tech aspects of all this, but I kind of don't understand some of the criticisms that's being thrown out, because to me, as far as I know, MAME is the same thing. So to me personally, I always thought it was kind of silly that there was two different records between MAME and non-MAME anyway, because it's the same damn game when it really comes down to it. But I do understand that there are, the real record, the arcade record, is more coveted. But I guess, and maybe you're the wrong guy to ask, but I guess I kind of don't understand the idea that one would be accused of playing MAME when, let's be frank, it really isn't any easier. So why would you play MAME and say it was not MAME?
Well, I'm sure it's not any easier. I've been told that by everybody. As a matter of fact, they say play a 60-1, which I guess is not an original. You could say that it's MAME-like. And if you play a 60-1, there's even lag time. And Steve Kleizak and I have talked about that a lot. And it would certainly be the last thing you would ever want to do, is play something like that. But since you're talking about that, you could really scratch your head and say, gee, people are really getting upset about this Donkey Kong score and thinking or saying or finding justification for it to be MAME. And you certainly wouldn't want it to be MAME, since it's the 12th score in line. You surely wouldn't want it to steal a limelight from everybody who's 13 and beyond. So I really wonder. I mean, sounds like you're wondering, questioning the motives of different people. I guess I would kind of understand if I'm sitting there a razor's edge, 1,000 points in front of somebody else. Well, I guess you'd really want to make sure the score is correct. But since it's number 12 in line, and like I said, this has so very little to do with the success and the fun and the excitement that I do in the gaming world, it's nearly irrelevant. But people have made it relevant, so I'm going to go ahead and answer the cause. If I can go ahead and, for a second, I want to continue telling you the scenario. After I was told, congratulations, sir, you finally did it. That was about 5 or 6 p.m. And naturally we stopped. Naturally we ate, because they serve food there at Grand Prix. And the intention was to continue playing the next day. Donkey Kong is ridiculously difficult. To give you an idea, as I said, I did a kill screen within about a year, and it was nearly 2 decades later before the second kill screen came. And believe me, the players today are tenfold better than any of the players in the old days, so let me not steal their thunder. But the fact of the matter is, the kill screen on Donkey Kong Jr., in less than a year, there was easily a half a dozen players who were doing it. So it's a far, far easier game, and that's why the game would have been played second. But the intention was to play the next day, and the truth is, after having eaten, and because it was still very early, and because time was not at all a factor at Grand Prix, I was being antagonized. Why don't you do it now? Why don't you play now? And obviously I was, full of fire and pumped up and excited, and so I did. I mean, I went ahead and played. And it is true that Pete Bouvier had left. It is true that he wasn't there. And it is true that he wasn't there at the end, and that I texted him, but that's what I did. And it is true that when the time comes and we look at the room shot of what happened, Pete Bouvier will not have been in the scene, in the photo, at the end of Donkey Kong Jr. I mean, oh well, he wasn't. But after that, we ate again. I talked with a few people, meaning interview-wise, and I don't want to say little guys like yourself, but back then your types of show weren't so prevalent. And we did some YouTube stuff, and that was it. We returned the next day. We thanked the managers. It was a little bit of a celebrity moment in time. And a guy named Matthew, I think, is the one who came and picked up the game for the distributor, because I wanted to make sure that it got back to him, and I had all kinds of thank yous and all that kind of stuff. This guy always came through with a game, no matter what, always. If I was going to be in a studio in Miami, in a new studio, and I says, geez, I need a Pac-Man here, bang, he showed up with a Pac-Man. So I certainly wanted to keep that good. But after that, a few conversations happened. Obviously, they happened with Pete. Obviously, they happened with Walter. They happened with different media. I can think of one guy that I did not converse with that I look back on. I wish that I did. But at the Big Bang event, which was shortly after that, and this is why I agreed to do the interview with you, Josh. You're about to go under the bus, by the way.
That's fine.
After that, first of all, Pete never expressed anything but goodness or happiness. We did many events after that, many times in Orlando, and this is the first one that comes to mind, in other places, where he often told the story of that weekend. And, it was on, he asked me to go on Twin Galaxies TV, which I did more than once. And of course, some of that involved you, like I went to the bus here.
That's all right. Quite all right. I've been around.
But the fact of the matter is, what happened was, all these years later, now there seems to be a different scenario that's drawn. And the fact of the matter is, I was there. I was at the Big Bang. I can honestly say, and I say it with regret, that I think Dave Nelson was annoyed. He was annoyed because so much had transpired between me and Pete, between me and Walter.
And David Nelson was head referee at the time.
Walter,
correct?
Pete, and Todd. Yeah, he was. And he was a good, distinguished guy in his position. And I regret that part. But the fact of the matter is, he seemed aggravated. And this had been spoken to other people, other ideas, other outlets. Usually the head referee would handle something like this. But again, the fact of the matter is that the recordings that I showed at the Big Bang were there, and they were there for entertainment. They were there for fun. At no time were they meant to verify a score, although I guess eventually we'll re-verify it here through all of that. And you happen to be there.
I was.
You happen to be at the Big Bang. Okay. You also happen to interview me at later times, we'll get to. There at the Big Bang, keep saying.
I'm sorry? Bill, are you still there?
Joel, are you still there?
Have we lost our feed here?
No, feed's up. Looks like we just...
There are...
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Bill,
are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. We lost you there for a minute, I think.
Well, what's the last thing you heard? I'll fire back at you.
You were about to say that I was there at the event as well, I believe, and we did some interviews.
Well, you were there. Yeah, you were there at the event as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm asking
the first weekend I ever met you.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you to recall what it is you know.
Oh, I'd be happy to tell you.
Because I have people telling me, "Oh, Billy, you have the tapes. Oh, Billy, you never gave anybody the tapes." Well, if I never gave anybody the tapes, why are they floating all over the internet? Okay? Twin Galaxies is responsible and is the custodian of the tapes. And it doesn't matter if it was at that moment or many years later. If those were given to them, then they have the responsibility of being the custodian of those tapes and anything else that might come along. I mean, I suppose, what if they lost paperwork?
Sure.
But the point I'm making is, I'm going to ask you, especially because you were there, because you had a camera or a microphone or you were part of Twin Galaxies, why don't you tell me or remind me here on the radio in front of people what it was you saw that happened?
Well, we arrived Friday. We had been there all day. We set up. That Friday, I met pretty much everyone I'm going to talk about here. I met for the first time that weekend, including you. The only people I went in there knowing was Mike Soroka and my cousin Ed Zaharsky, who was there as a fan more than, in official capacity. But I met Todd Rogers that day. Great guy. I had a lot of fun with him. And by the end of the night, we were hanging out in his hotel room, and he told me and others that he had a tape of Bill Mitchell getting the Donkey Kong world record back, and that Bill was going to show up the next day and show it to us. He showed me the tape that day. Not showed me, he didn't put it in the VCR. He showed me the physical tape and said, "Here's the tape. He did Donkey Kong. He did Donkey Kong Jr. too. He took them both back." And we were pretty excited about that. We thought it was cool just because, hey, it's going to be something for us to cover the next day as journalists. We were hosting the Twin Galaxies podcast at the time, which later became the Twin Galaxies show, which later then kind of indirectly became Settled on the Screen and then Settled on the Screen Live. And then back to Settled on the Screen again. But basically, he showed us that day. He announced it. Some of the other referees come Saturday morning, when word started to get around that this was coming out, were annoyed with Mike Soroka and I because we were given this information early. Why were we given this information early? I don't know, because Todd Rogers thought we were cool or something. We were hanging out in his hotel room. No other reason. He just thought we were people that he could tell, and it's not like it was top secret information. It was just info that he was letting us know. Sure enough, you showed up the next day, Bill, and TVs were put on, and the tape played in a loop over and over again. I'm no expert on this. I've never actually been a referee. As much as I've been connected to Twin Galaxies in the past, I've never been a referee. I looked at the tape, I watched it, and I thought, oh, cool. I didn't sit and watch the entire tape. Why? I'll tell you why, because I think it's boring to sit and watch an entire game of Donkey Kong, play it all the way through. I was doing other things. I love the game Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. I think they're cool, but I don't want to sit there and watch a tape of somebody doing it. But yeah, it was there. I did see a physical tape. I was present when it was being played. And that's about it, I guess. So my next question for you, Bill, is going to be, who was the tape originally given to? Was it given to Todd? I mean, because it was in his possession when I saw him.
Well, I'm gonna assume. Remember, I'm not the one who was the custodian of the tapes.
Sure.
I'm assuming by what you told me that yes, it was Todd, because it would have been either Todd or Pete who brought them to the Big Bang, because it wasn't me. But let's just run with the fact that it was Todd.
Okay.
And if it was Todd, we saw the tape in Todd's hand, and God bless him. I also saw the tapes in David's hands, because David gave them to me, or right at the table, handed them to me, so that I could put them in and play them on the TVs. Okay? That's what I know. Okay? From there, where did they go? They went somewhere, because they're all over the internet.
Sure.
Where did the originals go? I don't really know. And more importantly, I would imagine that wherever the originals are, the room tape is. But let me be a little more blunt that I haven't been to this point. A game is acquired just like at Fun Spot. Okay? An area is set up. An area is slightly roped off. Okay? There is some level of order or security there. There is recording there. And the recording is not necessary. It's there for the...
We lost you again, Bill. Bill?
Yeah, feet's still up.
Bill, something on your end, or are you with us?
The only job. Okay? The other jobs. My job is to show up and play to the best of my ability. Now, you've never heard the stories about all the times that I showed up to play, and the play went lousy enough that there was no reason to do anything other than erase the recording. But on a handful of occasions, things have gone very well, just like every other player. Okay? Most of the time you fail. I've always given the excuse. You know, one time when I said I was going to beat the Donkey Kong world record, I played 94 games, 94 times. I failed 93 times. And because I was willing to fail 93 times, that's why I succeeded. And the fact of the matter is, it's my job to go up to the game and play it. And that's what I did. We're not talking about the times I failed. We're talking about the rare occasions when I was able to come through on what I did. While you were at your tenure in Twin Galaxies, did anybody, especially Pete, did anybody ever express concern about, oh, gee, this wasn't done right, Billy screwed this up? Did anyone ever say, gee, I don't think this is real, I think we could investigate this?
No.
Did anyone ever say, gee, I think the wool was pulled over our eyes?
No.
As a matter of fact, I went on TGTV, and you were supposed to get a copy of this. Maybe let me know if you did. I went on TGTV, and they wanted to speak about, I was the only one who ever took the Donkey Kong board I had, because with the movie that came out, there was all the questions about, oh, a Donkey Kong, a double Donkey Kong, a slow Donkey Kong, a Donkey Kong with gummy substance, a Donkey Kong that smelled, a Donkey Kong that came from a bad guy, an altered this. And none of that interested me. But I wanted to make sure that I wasn't caught up in the same scenario. I took the Donkey Kong board and I sent it off to Nintendo. I sent it to Nintendo, and a senior engineer who said he knew me, who was very kind, agreed to certify it. And when I did the high score, it got sent back to him to be certified that it was still the same board. 2 different times it went to him. And you, or one of your colleagues, did a show about how the board was certified, and it was the only time that a manufacturer ever certified a board as being real or legitimate or authentic or whatever word you want to give it. And here's another secret, just so you know. The year was 2009, maybe it was 8. And Steve Wiebe was playing at the E3. And following my example, Pete Bouvier tried to get a board certified by Nintendo. And they told him no. As you know, Nintendo is not into these things, and they're surely not into coin-op games.
No.
So the board that I had certified, Pete came and picked it up for me, and he took it to E3, where I assume, unless he had another one, where I assume he put it in a game, and that was where Steve Wiebe played. I think it was on G4 TV, in an effort to try to break the record. So this certified board was not only played by me, but it was played by Steve Wiebe. All right, this is a silly thing that's gotten a lot of attention, and it's really a bummer because, forget me, believe me, if you don't think I can take any amount of firepower that comes at me, then you don't know me well. But there's otherwise good people who were involved in this, people who worked hard, people that set things up, and they're being made to be a liar. So if I simply ignore this like I do other stupidity that's come my way over the decades, then I probably wouldn't be a friend, and I'd probably be irresponsible. So that's why I've chosen to answer this, and we're on day 11 now, that I've been called upon to answer this. And we have film people, we have engineers who worked for video game manufacturers, all these people who are coming and giving opinions and helping us in order to be able to duplicate what we did. I actually found the original. No, we had 2 different converters, in order to translate the signal to a direct feed. The reason why the direct feed was important is not just because of what Rob said, how the camera got knocked over, and that was at a home show. I was at a home show playing a game, the camera got knocked over and it broke his cameras. Poor Rob. But the idea back in the 90s was I wanted to play on a Miss Pac-Man in the restaurant and have that, what goes on the screen, broadcast on the TV, so people would cheer for what's on the TV just like they do a hockey game or a baseball game. Well, back then, The answer was no. There's no converter to go from RGB to NTSC. And then around the year 2000, the technician said to me, hey, look, call these people. They've developed the technology. It was developed, I think, by a guy named Spike. And the fact of the matter is, that's how the idea came to go to direct feed, which I don't have to tell you. I won't be doing direct feed again. But
so can you
my job is to play the game, and it's everybody else's job to be smarter than me.
Right.
It'll take a little time.
So would you say, as far as you know, the tape in question here, did somebody accept the tape officially on behalf of Twin Galaxies, or was that not an issue due to the fact that the record was being verified by referee, not by videotape?
I don't think it was necessary, because when you have something verified by a referee or at a live event, it doesn't have to be recorded. My question would be, who was it that entered the score in there in the database, and where it says verification, it says referee. It doesn't say tape. Correct. Well, I believe, and he's a very decent guy, I don't know how it could be anyone other than Dave Nelson. And I couldn't even think of a bad word to say about Dave Nelson. And so that's not the point. The point is, that's how it was entered. It was entered as a referee. And you're calling upon me 8 years later to try to put together all these people in all these scenarios.
Yeah. No, that is true. And listen, I know that a lot of tapes over the years, a lot of footage have been lost. I know that there are also a lot of depositories of tapes all throughout the United States of America sitting in people's basements right now. This tape in question, do you think it exists somewhere?
Well, I believe it exists simply because I know of one location that has several hundred tapes. I know of another location that has over 1,000 tapes. I was contacted by one individual who said, Pete Bouvier specifically said, can you find Billy's tape and send it to me, Billy's tapes, and send it. And I says, did you send it? And the individual said, yes, of course I sent it. And when was that? That was way back when. What's way back when? 2010, 11, 12? Yeah, somewhere in there. Okay, how many other scenarios is that? I guess in my heart of hearts, if I had to guess, and it's a lucky guess, what I call the room tape, not the original game tapes, but the room tape, my lucky guess might be that Pete either has it or had it at one time. And of course, the company went and changed hands twice since then.
And Pete Bouvier
I
is
believe
no longer
eventually,
with us.
Right. I believe it will eventually show up. Okay. We've also had, let's see, I know another place where there's 37 pounds worth of tapes waiting to be sent to Twin Galaxies. I know another time, okay, where somebody got their hand slapped illegally because they were selling tapes on eBay. I've had a couple of different people tell me that when they parted ways with the old Twin Galaxies, meaning Pete Bouvier, they were so annoyed, they took everything they had and they chucked it in the garbage. And even if that's the case, that's fine. If somebody said, Billy, I know I had it right here, man. I was so annoyed. I threw everything in the dumpster. That's fine. I can stop looking then.
Right.
You know? But the fact of the matter is, the handle that is on this situation, the custodial handle that's on this, sucks.
It does.
And it's annoying to take your everyday life and put together and jump through all these hoops in order to put together a scenario, recreate a scenario, and find everything, because there's other people involved who have an everyday life and responsibilities, and you have to match up your time with theirs. And like I said, this is only day 11.
Well, and there is a certain idea behind it, and I think this is kind of what you're getting at here, that once one sets a world record, they don't necessarily think that they have to go on preserving said world record forever. That's the purpose of an organization like Twin Galaxies. It sets the world record for you. Wilt Chamberlain doesn't have to go around walking around with a tape of him scoring 100 points. It's, it was the NBA took care of that for him.
Yeah. No, actually, that's a hell of a good idea. Why don't we call Wilt Chamberlain, have him come back and play in a basketball game and score another 100 points? Never in my wildest thoughts.
A point I've made in the past as well.
Yeah, I mean, never in my wildest dream did I imagine that something so stupid as this could happen. And again, I obviously have annoyance, and I feel that Twin Galaxies has the responsibility to be the custodian of all of this. But by the same token, if I'm saying to people, we're putting together all of this technological stuff that people want answers for, and if I can say that I'm doing that, and it takes time, and it's annoying, therefore, you have to wait. By the same token, I have to give Twin Galaxies that same consideration, and I have to say that I'm waiting patiently as they do what they have to do to try to gather or reassess everything that makes this real. There's
Bill,
a few
go ahead.
silly people here, and other than that, it's a group of people who want questions answered, and I'm not blind to that.
Bill, changing gears here just slightly, and I have every intention of going back to the subject at hand here. And if you don't have anything to say about some of this, that's quite all right. But would you care to weigh in on the Todd Rogers situation at all? I don't mean Todd Rogers in regards to this tape. I mean what Todd Rogers has been going through as well. I know that's something.
I met Todd Rogers Todd Rogers in 2002. Okay, but rewind to 2000. Excuse me. I met him in 2002. Rewind to the year 1982. Imagine the state of mind that I'm in. I'm playing, and I'm playing feverishly. Okay, I had not yet come across Twin Galaxies, and I was convinced that nobody in the world could beat me. And of course, I was playing Donkey Kong. And somebody said to me, "Did you hear about this guy who got this score on Dragster? They called it the impossible score. What about it?" Well, he said he got a 551. And I said, "He did, huh?" "Yeah, sure he did." "Yeah. Let me tell you about the Tooth Fairy." "Sure he did." Well, that was in the spring. I guess we went into the summer. And somebody said, "Hey, you know that guy?" I never knew that guy's name. "That guy who said he got 551 on Dragster?" "Yeah." "Well, he did it again." "Yeah, sure he did." "No, he did it at a trade show in the Activision booth." And I said, "Oh, really?" "Yeah, he did." And I said, "Wow." Well, then go a couple months further. "Hey, know that guy who did that impossible score?" "Yeah." He did it again at an Activision booth at a different show. And I said, "Oh, I never met this guy." Okay, until 2002. Well, what I'm telling you is, when I tell you that story, when I tell you that happened, when I tell you my frame of mind, I find it too difficult to believe that two different groups of people from Activision at two different trade shows, at two different times, with two different groups of media, with two different groups of witnesses, got the wool pulled over their eyes. You're not going to get me to believe that. I'm just not gonna. And if someone else chooses to believe that, well, oh well. There's a reason why nobody can duplicate the score now. That's why they called it the impossible score. That's why Activision sent it off to Guinness. That's why Activision put it up in lights. I'll give you one more scenario. When Pole Position came out, Atari announced that a perfect score was 66,710. It was out, and it wasn't out that long. And there were two guys in particular who got 66,760. They beat the so-called perfect score. Now they've gotten 67,260. And I don't see this same anxiety over their scores. So I think there's more to the Todd Rogers story. I think there's more to come. And I want the truth, like anybody else does.
It's interesting information, Bill. I do appreciate that. I tend to agree with you. I have trouble personally, and again, I'm not a tech guy, I'm not a computer guy. I personally have problems with the analyzation of 40-year-old, just 40-year-old analog tech, through digital means.
And
I have trouble with this. These
again,
games were glitchy. They were glitchy as hell, and I don't see why.
Well, again, if Todd was playing a game that later had some modification or just something made slightly different to where, gee, now we can't do a 5-5-1. Well, okay, that doesn't mean Todd didn't do it then. I mean, I don't really know what to say to this, but the fact of the matter is, Todd's job, like my job, is to step up and play the game. And you don't understand all the times that I fail. Todd Rogers had to have failed 10,000 times in his quest to get a 5-5-1. He had to have failed at least 10,000 times. You don't hear about any of those.
Right.
Okay, all of the so-called scrutiny comes at that one point of success. That's what his job is. That's what my job is. And it's somebody else's job to do everything else. And all these years later, to sit here and scrutinize it, there's more to it. And whatever the more to it is, that'll come out later. But it is not going to have an effect on my everyday life. I'm sure it won't with Todd either. But it's not going to have an effect on my everyday life. And it's not going to have an effect on whoever comes after me. Maybe Ben Gold didn't do what he did. So maybe Joe didn't do what he did.
Hey, watch that, buddy.
You know, yeah, maybe Chris Steele, who would be arguably the best player I've ever seen, didn't do what he did. I just don't know where it ends. But a lot of good people, film people that I've spoken to today, again, a game board engineer who worked for a company for 10 years. If it wasn't for those people, I would be like you, Josh. I would be completely defenseless. I would have no way to answer these, except I would say, I just play. But the truth is, that is all I do. I just play.
Well, you know, Bill, there's something when you work for Twin Galaxies and you honor what this original idea was. A world record is supposed to be a world record, and once it's set, it's set. It's there until it's broken. But even when it's broken, it still exists in its former championship form. So the question I have, and I guess one of my biggest problems I have with this dispute system in its inception, is what happens, God forbid, when you world record holders aren't here anymore to defend yourself? Will these records then all be disputed one by one from now deceased gamers and just nullified because there's now no one there to defend their former glory?
Okay, you said what happens when the world record holders are no longer here to defend them. Another scenario which exists with many people, some of the people I just named, what happens when these world record holders no longer care to defend what they actually did? And here, let's go back one more step. What happens when these world record holders, and not world record holders, guys that are in 12th place, okay, no longer have the evidence, okay, or anything that they can present because the custodialship of it is somewhere else? I wonder if that'll happen. I have faith that things will show up. People will speak up. That's why I agreed to do this interview with you, because you were going under the bus. You are a Twin Galaxies guy. And you saw those tapes floating. Yeah, you saw those tapes floating around. You saw them being handled. Did you sit and watch them all the way through? No, you didn't. But you could probably do it since somebody got them and they put them on the internet. But the fact of the matter is, there's people scratching their head wondering if they ever existed at all.
Sure.
Well, yeah, they did exist.
Josh?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
So I think it's time for me to go.
Well, this is Joel here. I want to say something.
Sure, I do have a few more quick questions for Bill before we wrap up. But go ahead,
I think you need to call. I think you need to call Gibbs and tell them that we have a new world record here tonight on your radio show. The fact of the matter is that no one has ever said the fact of the matter is as many times as Bill Mitchell has said the fact of the matter is tonight. This is a new world record. Congratulations!
I will look into that.
Yeah, but this is not. Yeah, but this is not a real radio show. So This is a bootleg, so it doesn't count.
Well, I did see some people, and I know we didn't mention we were going to mention comments or anything like that, but people are already accusing us of having this pre-recorded. And this isn't pre-recorded. This is live.
This is absolutely live.
This is live right now. I can't hold up a picture or a newspaper or anything like that.
Can I like hit like Google or something and show everyone the timestamp?
Don't even.
Well, Josh, if I could
I'm
give you a
watching
little
Star
advice.
Trek on TV. If that'll help.
Bill, let me ask you this.
Josh,
yes.
I had somebody fly in, and we had a very nice dinner. He was a very decent guy. Okay, and we shared personal time, which is the best thing that I do with people, the camaraderies that are made. And he said to me, can I get your advice on something? I said, sure. He said, what do I do when there's people who are accusing me of cheating? People who are saying that I didn't get the score that I got, even though it's plain and obvious. And I spoke from the heart, and I gave him honest advice. And it seemed well received. Okay, that guy can go unmentioned for the moment, but it was a terrific time. The fact of the matter is, you're going to say to people that the show was live. You're going to say that it wasn't recorded. You're going to say that it wasn't spliced together and edited together, and that it was from the hip. And most people are simply going to shake their head and believe you. You will never convince the losers otherwise. Nothing. They could be in your studio, and they will never give you the satisfaction of that. So just
how could you read their comment if they weren't live?
That's a good point. That is a good point. How would we read that comment if it's not live? I'm kind of ashamed I didn't think of that myself, Joel. Bill, have you spoken to Walter? Oh, go ahead, Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
No, you were first.
Okay, I'm sorry. Have you spoken to Walter Day recently? And if so, how does he feel about what's become of the subculture he created?
No, he's obviously disappointed. He's out of the country.
Yes.
But he's obviously disappointed, and when he comes back, he will obviously speak up, say what he knows. He obviously spoke to Pete Bouvier, say, every day for however many years, okay? And Pete Bouvier never expressed any concern of anything like this, nor did anyone else at Twin Galaxies. I asked you, did you ever hear any of these concerns in your tenure there? And you said no. So Walter's a guy whose spirit is simply never broken. And he says, the truth will always come out.
He's a great man.
So just continue to address it. And that's what he said. And I don't mean to sound funny, but for people to lash out at Walter, for those of you who don't know Walter, to lash out at Walter and try to inflict anything on Walter, even verbally, that's like lashing out at an Amish guy. He's simply the kindest, hardest guy in the world. Most kind-hearted guy there is.
Bill, I'm going to give you an example I've used.
If he only had $1 in his pocket, he would give it to you because he would say, he wanted to help you.
Bill, I'm going to use an example I've used in the past. When I've been discussing things both on air, off air, in official capacity and unofficial capacity, I always say that Walter Day is the one guy that I really won't tolerate people saying nasty things about. I will always stick up for Walter Day. When someone says something that I disagree with about, let's give an example, say Bill Mitchell or Richie Knuckles, I know that you guys are tough dudes. You can handle yourself, and I don't need to be out there defending the guys who are more than capable of defending themselves. And I'm not saying Walter's not tough. I'm not saying he can't face adversity. But like you said, Bill, Walter is just simply a kind soul, and I really don't know how anyone has anything negative to say about him. Somebody says something negative about Josh Houselander, well, God, I got a radio show. I can say what I would.
It's probably deserved.
Yeah, it might be deserved. Who knows? But
it's probably somebody who knows you better than we do.
It's probably Adam.
I can say plenty of negative things about Josh, and they're all true.
Bill, I don't want to talk about this a real long time, but how do you feel about TG's dispute system? How do you feel about their new verification system with not that new anymore, but the verification system with the, community adjudicating? How do you feel about these things?
I couldn't find anything positive to say right now. I wonder how it takes into consideration anybody from the past. And as difficult as it is to address these things, how much more difficult is it as we get older and older? Okay, at what point was there a TG official somewhere that saw something, and that will come down, and that will come down. Eventually, it doesn't matter what you have to dispute. You can dispute it, and there'll be nobody there, as you say, to defend it. There'll be nobody there to say otherwise. The person may actually be dead, or their evidence may be somewhere else, or it may simply not be available or not in somebody's mind in order to be able to present it. It takes a few minutes, okay, to throw a bomb against the wall. It's a bear to sit there and recreate stuff, okay? And I'm very happy to hear, okay, that Twin Galaxies is going to be reviewing their dispute system. I guess we all constantly try to do things to improve our situation. So it was very refreshing for me to hear that Twin Galaxies is no different, and they will be trying to improve their situation as well.
Are those opinions pretty consistent with how you felt about it all along, or have they kind of changed with recent events that have unfolded?
I've never been on Twin Galaxies forums. Well, I've never been on it since around the turn of the century. But I've never been on there. I've never been on the Donkey Kong forums. I don't go on any forums. I'm not on Facebook. The only time I hear about this stuff is when people like you bring it to my attention. So I can't tell you if I always felt that way about their dispute system. I don't know if it's been in place for 3 weeks or if it's been in place for 3 years. I don't know. So I just know that when somebody takes the time and the effort to do something live, when they can stand up to that pressure, those are people that I would support.
Bill, I'm going to throw a couple of things out there to you as we come to a close here. And then before we do come to a complete close, I'm going to let you throw in some final thoughts if you have any. But I guess you could call it a game, if you will. And if you don't feel like jumping in on this, you don't have to. But I've just kind of compiled a list of a couple of names that I just kind of want to throw out there to you. And let me know if this is somebody that you've talked to recently, or if you have something to say about them, or if you have something that you think could come to light about this, if you've spoken to them, how they feel about the situation. If you don't have thoughts on that particular person, that's quite all right. It's just some people that I thought maybe could come to mind. I'll start with somebody who I know is a friend of yours.
This is you throwing me under the bus now. But go
ahead. Steve Sanders. Have you spoken to him lately?
Spoke to him about maybe a week ago. Steve Sanders, he became a friend to most everybody a long time ago. It would be hard to find something lousy to say about him. Probably the worst thing you could say is when he was a teenager, he was so silly that he lied about a video game score. That's what you could say to him.
And he would be the first one to tell you that.
He acknowledged it, and yeah, he would.
Steve Wiebe.
He did. He wrote me a letter explaining it. I last saw Steve at Kong Off 4, and he was not at Kong Off 5 for some reason, and he's likely to be at Kong Off 6.
Hank Chen.
Hank Chen was at Kong Off 5. He's likely to be at Kong Off 6. And Hank Chen is probably the player that my son asks me about the most often, because when Hank met my son in New Jersey, my son was young and impressionable, and Hank was very, very kind to him. So that's a kind word to say about Hank.
Patrick Patterson.
And as you know, Hank does not fit the typical stereotype of a video game player.
No, not at all. Not at all. Super nice guy. Patrick Patterson.
I've met him twice that I recall, and when I met him, he seemed fine. I know he's anything but that towards me now. Funny you should ask about him, though, and people will think this is staged, but the fact of the matter is, there in 2010, he was a very unhappy guy, and he was right in the mix of all this. So I wish I knew exactly what was on his mind and what he knew about this, because that would be helpful in our quest of the truth.
Although it is worth noting that when you said earlier that all of the people who were in official capacity at Twin Galaxies at the time took no issue with your record, and he was one of those people who took no issue with it and never spoke about it at the time. Kat Despira.
Right, nobody did. Met her once.
That's one more time than I've met her. Rudy J. Ferretti.
I see him occasionally when I go to California. I don't think I've ever had a negative interaction with him. I think his energy level and such is through the roof. And without lying, I don't ever have interaction with him outside of when I see him in California. So that's all.
Robbie Lakeman.
Robbie Lakeman is a guy who I've had some personal interaction with, who has helped me with some personal endeavors when I needed to, when I was in his hometown. He's a guy that when he's been down here, I think I've visited with him, and it was always pleasant. Hasn't been probably, if I don't know the last time I, was individually with him. It's been at least a year.
Wes Copeland?
Same thing when he was in town here. Again, the relationships you make with people at these different events are really what you hang on to. So he was coming to town. I don't really know why he came to town, but he came to town and he had the time. So we had some personal interaction, and quite honestly, it was very worthwhile.
Vincent LeMay?
I laugh at Vincent because he was young, and I pick on him because he didn't speak English too good, although he does now. And the fact of the matter is, I used to say to him, well, when you got a wife and kids, you have different priorities, and playing is not a priority. And because I openly told him, the only time I play Donkey Kong is at the Kong Off. And it's been like that since 2010. And then him and his girl had a baby, and he's like the happiest guy in the world. And at the last Kong Off, I said to him, I go, hey, when's the last time you played? He says, last time I played was at the last Kong Off. And I says, I told you. No, I said to him, I go, why? And he goes, I don't want to. And I go, but you got your own machine. I don't want to. And I says, you'd rather sit on the couch and spend time with your wife and your baby. And he goes, yeah. And I says, when I told you that years ago, you thought I was lying to you and making excuses. And he looked at me and he shook his head. He goes, yeah, I thought you were. Now life has dealt him a different hand, and he sees a different point of view.
Last one I got for you, Bill. Tim Zerbe.
Tim Zerbe. I first time I spoke to Tim Zerbe was when he got his kill screen. I called him. I congratulated him. Had a very pleasant call with him. And the fact of the matter is, when they made the movie and they cut him out of the movie, I contacted him. I talked to him about it. I even apologized to him about it, because I mentioned his name many, many times during the filming. Many times. He was a very happy guy, and he says, I don't know how you guys can possibly squeeze out that many points, because I think he was in the upper 800s. But of course, he started playing, and he did learn how to squeeze out those points, and he did. And I think the first two Kong Offs, at the beginning of the Kong Off, when I had the microphone and I was making announcements, I announced that I wished he was there, that he had deserved to be there.
I recall that.
And I've never. Oh, you do recall?
I do.
You were there under the bus.
I was there, and actually, when I recently, well, within the last year, these things run together. The last time I interviewed Tim Zerbe, I brought that to his attention.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, I myself have never had a negative interaction with him. If you want to say he was cheated out of his place in history by Hollywood, that's correct. And so I've gone out of my way to mention him each opportunity that I could. And again, I never had a negative interaction with him. Now, other people have negative interactions with him, and they're able to draw out negative conversations. There's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing I can do to help those other people. Only God can help those people. There's nothing I can do about that. But Tim Zerbe was always good to me.
Hey, Billy. I know we're kind of running short on time. I know you probably have to go, but just one question for myself.
I had to go a little while ago.
Sorry about that. But the East Side Dave interview last week or 2 weeks ago. Obviously, it's not something that you guys were exactly thrilled about. We did talk about the MAME tape and everything. And I just wanted to verify with you that the MAME tape that was brought up by I believe it was Jeremy Young on the message boards there. Do you you don't
somebody I've never had any communication with, unfortunately. Yes. But go ahead.
But you don't dispute that video, that MAME video, is your video. It's always been your case that there's a second video out there that Twin Galaxies has, or somebody has, that shows that's not what I say. Okay. I don't know if it's the video or not. Okay. I'll even assume that it is. But what I'm telling you is that it's not MAME, and I didn't play on MAME. Okay. And that's what not a chance, none, zero. And again, I mean, this also goes back to Josh, back to the old verification system when it was, and like you said, you were there when people would, when it was just a referee there that had to verify the record, and that was it. And I mean, like I said, I'm a total outsider when it comes to this stuff. I don't even think I've seen King of Kong all the way through, but when you guys are laying all this stuff out, it's based off the old verification system, based off of what you said, Josh, about the referee only needing to be there, what Billy says about the input of the score being verified by a referee. I mean, I just don't see why it comes down to a video that's how many years old now. And it's just, I don't know. It's weird to me being an outsider looking at this. I know a lot of people have their own opinions, and this interview tonight, what Billy's saying tonight, really probably isn't going to change a whole lot of minds, because people are set in their own opinions and what they have to say about it, and based off of everything that's happened with Todd Rogers, people are going to have their opinions. They're not going to change their opinions. It's not like politics. You're not going to change a Republican into a Democrat. You're not going to change a Democrat into a Republican. It's not like that. But I don't know. From my perspective here, I can certainly see why people will have their gripes, why people will have their suspicions, but in talking to you, Josh, and I've known you for a very, very long time. This is the first time I've ever talked to Billy, but talking to you, Josh, on the way over here, I mean, what you guys say make a lot of sense. So,
yeah. No, thanks for your questions, Adam.
Well. Here's what I hope to do in the coming days. We will continue to produce more and more stuff that will show the obvious fact that what happened and what is said to have happened and what the referees said happened truly did happen. There are good people who have honest questions, and those honest questions get answered more and more. There are people who have contacted me already and said, oh, now I see, now I understand. Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, gee, I was wondering about that. Well, more and more people with honest questions that are sincere will come to see and understand things. There is a small group of people, no matter what, will never do it, will never concede that. and there's nothing I can do about those people, and I don't care to try. I'm simply going to put out everything that I know to the best of my knowledge, and more so what I can coax or push people into speaking up about, because there's a lot of people who are not willing to speak up because they'll come under attack. There's one person who says, I sent Pete Bouvier the tape he asked for, and that one person said, I cannot speak up about this because it's just not within their personality, and maybe at a later time they will, or maybe at a later time somebody from Twin Galaxies will speak to them about that. But again, the fact of the matter is there are some people that are unreachable, and I simply, not only do I accept that, I accepted that 15 years ago or more, 20 years ago. That's not what this little crusade is about. This crusade is about supplying answers for the people who truly want them. Any friend, anybody who approaches as a friend who has a question, I will answer it to the very best of my ability. Anybody in authoritative position, I will answer it to the best of my ability, simply out of respect. Okay? The other people, I don't really care. I mean, I don't, because it isn't anything new. My job is to play the game, and people who are smarter than me know the right settings, the right verifications, okay, the right requirements, and it gets recorded. And the recording was never even part of the scenario. It was part of the fun. That's what I can tell you. I can also tell you that dinner's ready, and it has been for a while.
Bill, I think this has been a good talk. Listen, Adam and I are going to be called shills. We're going to be made pariahs by some of this. I want to assure everybody out there, we're just radio hosts. We're just radio hosts. We have no agenda here. We put a man, Billy Mitchell, who I believe deserves some respect for what he's done in this subculture, and we let you talk. I have no more questions. I don't think Adam has any more questions. Bill, is there anything else you want to say before we come to a conclusion here?
Yeah, I want to say you kept me on the phone longer than you were supposed to.
We did. We did.
That's all. All right, let me run. We'll talk again. And again, I guess I'm doing a little confession here in the fact that we are trying to put things together and in an organized, responsible manner that answers these things. And as they come out, I welcome anybody who has a real question. I welcome anybody who chooses to call or contact me and say, oh, gee, now I understand. Oh, gee, now it's starting to make more sense. Or can you get me this answer because that will help me understand? That's actually why we're doing it.
Bill,
all right, stay happy, and we'll talk again. Remember, you were there, and I was able to pull answers out of you. So that's why I say under the bus.
Bill, thank you for your time.
Enjoy
Enjoy your
Billy.
dinner. Enjoy your family, and be well, sir.
Yep.
Good day.
Thank you, Billy.
Good day.
All right. Joel, are you still with us?
Fact of the matter is, I am.
Okay, Joel, listen, we got to the bottom of some stuff here. Like Adam has pointed out, a lot of minds aren't going to be changed. Minds weren't changed on the last show Bill went on that was a bit of a disaster. I doubt a whole lot of minds were changed tonight. I don't know that. I hope that's not the case. I think we put together a good show, and I think I'm glad that we had a candid talk with Bill. What else would you like to add here, Joel?
Well, I think you're correct. If a voice came out of heaven and said Bill Mitchell was innocent, there would be people who said it was just thunder. But I mean, not a real voice. But people, it's amazing to me the amount of people on the internet whom have already made up their minds without hearing Bill's side. You've got to realize that Bill is telling you the truth about not going on Facebook. He doesn't have it. He doesn't go on the forums. Bill and I once rented a car together about 2 years ago. I'm thinking it was in California, and it was one of those push-button starts, and we had a little key to get in the door, and we couldn't figure out how to start the thing for probably a good 8 or 9 minutes. And we laughed. It felt really old after we realized it was a push-button start. And so Bill is technologically inept. I am just one level above that. That's it. And we know how to play the games, and we can get along with our phones semi appropriately, but there's probably a lot of functions on them we don't use. But Bill himself told you the truth tonight. I listened to it. I had no problem just sitting back and listening because he was telling you exactly what it was. We do have some people working with us, and they will be producing the technological side of things in the next, we would like them to be already completed. But, people have lives, like Bill said, and they are working on them. And hopefully, I'm hoping, we've come this far in 11 days, that within the next, at least the next week, we'll have videos to prove points. What would be wonderful would be if Twin Galaxies would get behind their responsibility and seriously search for this video, because Josh and Adam, here's the point that I'd like to make. Billy Mitchell is the most famous game player, classic game player of video game history in the classic era. He is the face of gaming. And if a group of people who want to, just like hackers, do things to video game players, they can find anything they want and harp on it. And am I saying it's a conspiracy? It could very well be, but it could very well just be a big misunderstanding, or misunderstanding that got big just because of the dispute system. I've made some proposals on Twin Galaxies in the dispute thread that I hope that they'll consider. I don't think that any score should be disputed unless it is a current standing world record. It wastes time to do otherwise. Number 12 in the line of Donkey Kong scores is not something that's threatening Robbie Lakeman or Wes Copeland or anybody else up in the top. It's threatening somebody else. That's why they're making this play to bring this up. The score was there. It was adjudicated with the proper verification methods of the time. And this is more than just let's set the record straight and get the truth. The people who are on the forums don't want the truth. They want to get on there and pound their point of view. And when I get on there and counter them, they tell me I'm a hater, that I'm a this or that. And I just present the truth. I get mad just like anybody else, but I've gotten mad very little on there. They try to agitate, but the truth is, he did the scores. I have personally seen Bill do 2 1 million plus scores and 2 scores close to a million. The 874 and a 933. And, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even like the game Donkey Kong. I think that the game I play, Berserk, is a far superior game. I'm sorry, I do. But the fact is that I watch them, and it is the most popular. No doubt about that. That and Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Pac-Man doesn't get the attention it used to, but
no,
still,
Dragster took that spot.
You put a Pac-Man and a Donkey Kong in a place like a coin laundromat or something, and Pac-Man will get the most plays of any of them.
Right.
But
Todd,
I think that.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think that Bill told you the truth tonight. We've got some technical stuff coming out, and he's not afraid to talk, as you can see, and to converse about this. We all have lives, and there are people who really want to destroy the lives. My question is this, and then I'm done. Why did not Twin Galaxies not come to Bill first and say, hey, you've got this challenge? Bill has been with the head of Twin Galaxies many times since last August. I've been in communication with him once, and Walter's been in communication a few times, and it's all known. We all 3 stick together and we travel together. So why has not one person come forward and mentioned this? And we found out about on a Facebook post 11 days ago. I think in 11 days we've come a heck of a long way. We've gotten a lot together. We've got a lot of help, a lot of people working with us on this and supporting Bill. And this thing has been simmering all this time. Why didn't we know it? He wasn't ignoring it. He just didn't know it.
Right.
Twin Galaxies has an adjudication system that doesn't notify the person whose score is in question. So essentially, their score could be removed without them ever knowing it. Now, how does that make people feel? It makes me feel vulnerable. You know,
Yeah.
I don't. You know, if somebody wants to challenge me, go ahead. I'll come play a game berserk. But people who are no longer able to reach those scores, that's a very shuddering thought for someone who worked hard for something. I'm sorry, I'll shut up now.
No, Joel, we're out of time, but is there anything you want to say, just a couple of words, is there anything you want to say, weigh in on the Todd Rogers situation?
Yeah, I think, I didn't meet Todd in 2010. I've talked to him a lot since then. I think he's a wonderful guy. I do not believe that Todd cheated himself. I know that on Berserk, there's things that I can do that I can go through walls at certain points that nobody else can do, or maybe one other person can do right now. Todd Rogers has a unique gaming ability. And by legal standards, they did not even use the highest or even the lowest standard of civil law proof to get rid of his scores. They used innuendo, a computer program that hasn't been tested by a third party, and they used words of people who were his fellow competitors to essentially decide the situation. I think Todd Rogers deserves another chance.
Joel, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for hanging by and for helping arrange this interview. We do appreciate it. Listen, I know that this is not going to dispel all the tumultuous actions of people in the subculture, but I hope it helped. You know, I mean, it's video games we're talking about here, everybody. So I hope that people get on with their real lives. I hope that I'm not telling people to ignore anything. Your people are passionate about this, and that's great. You're passionate. People are passionate, but you know, Joel, I want to thank you for your time. I again want to thank Bill Mitchell for his time. Yeah, I mean, gamers gonna game, players gonna play, haters gonna hate. Podcasters gonna podcast, and we got another one coming up right after this. So I hope everyone stays tuned to theempiremedia.com or Facebook Live as Adam and I, shameless plug, dive into our next show on cults. Joel, thank you again, sir. Appreciate your time. Adam has one thing to throw in.
Thank you very much.
No, okay. And thanks a lot.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Just a couple of things, Josh. I mean, you know, just to kind of, and we certainly appreciate Joel and Billy, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, taking an hour and a half
out
of their day, especially here at night.
3 times what they agreed to, by the way.
Yeah, originally it was going to be a half hour, then an hour, then here we are at an hour and a half. But like I said, and you mentioned this earlier, Josh. I don't recall if you said it on the air, but if you're disputing Billy Mitchell's score, and this is another thing I took from it, if you're disputing his based on the old way that you verified stuff when it was just, and I don't even know, is it just, do you need to have a video now?
Yeah, typically now you stream it.
Okay.
And you know, Adam, one thing I want to say real quick too is that I've seen this culture change. When I first got into this, it was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You were in some ways disrespected if you weren't willing to do the score live.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was the feeling of a lot of people. It was like, oh, they sat in a room and played it on a video, you know, played it and then came up with a videotape. No, I want to see the guy do it live. So when these guys were doing these scores live, that was the coveted method of score taking.
Yeah, and like I was alluding to, if you're gonna, you know, if people have a problem with Billy Mitchell's score when it was done and how it was verified, you know, are people going to have problems with other verified scores during that particular time when they were set. I mean, we're talking about, baseball,
Right.
During the steroid era. I mean, are those records, for instance, Barry Bonds' home run record it's always going to be under scrutiny because, he took performance enhancing drugs, took steroids, and that's what we have. I'm not saying that anyone, including Billy Mitchell, were divulging themselves in cheating or anything like that. I'm not here to give my opinion one way or the other.
Sure.
I heard what I heard, and I'm going to leave it at that. But I'm wondering myself where this ends with these older scores under the old system of having a referee there to verify. Is it just Todd Rogers and is it just Billy Mitchell, or are there other people out there that are going to have their scores disputed because of?
And is there even any defense for it?
I don't know. Look, I understand where a lot of these people are coming from. Look, I mean, from what I read about MAME, it's not just something that you can. It's just not another platform that you can play on, or another emulator that you can play on. There is a way to splice things together. But as Billy said tonight, that video wasn't. It sounds like that's what you're saying, that wasn't him, and it seems like it's null and void anyway, because his verification was done by a referee, and he said he was going to throw you under the bus, right. Josh, that you were there.
And I was. And
you saw it yourself. And I'm not going to sit here.
And I've seen Bill Mitchell play Donkey Kong. I know he has legit skills.
And I'm not.
I know
and look,
does,
I'm not. And look, I've talked to Billy Mitchell once tonight, and that was it. I've talked to you more times than I'm proud of, and I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and call you a liar. If you saw what you saw, if you saw Billy Mitchell break the score, I'm going to believe you. I'm going to believe that that's what you saw. You saw him break the score. You saw that particular score be met by Billy Mitchell on an arcade machine and not a MAME emulator or anything like that. And again, like I said, I understand where. Sure. The speculation, where the hate is coming from. However, based on what I heard from Billy tonight, based on what I've heard from you and talking to you, I mean, it doesn't seem like all of this has any legitimacy because of the old verification system.
Right. No, and you make a good point, Adam, and it's, to me, If world records can be removed, then I guess they were never a world record to begin with. And I guess, again, I'm not saying that any of these guys ever did anything that was not 100% proper, but to me, this is akin to Nolan Ryan's old coach saying, truth is Nolan Ryan threw spitballs all the time. Mm-hmm. Or Hank Aaron's grandson coming out and saying, actually, Hank Aaron told me one day sitting on the porch drinking a beer that he used a cork bat like 30% of the time. Or people coming out and looking at old tapes of Michael Jordan and saying, and hey, this one's legit, by the way, saying, hey, looks to me like the referees were kind of in bed with Jordan and didn't call him for a lot of fouls.
You see it today, too, with LeBron James. I mean, superstars of the NBA always get the benefit of the doubt, it seems like, with calls. So.
Right, so I don't, where does this end? And the reason why I dispute the dispute system, if you will, is because, to me, in my eyes, right, wrong, indifferent, these were the records.
It opens it up for hate. That's what it sounds like.
Right.
If you have a personal vendetta against somebody like Billy Mitchell or Steve
and many people do,
Chen or whoever,
or Todd Rogers,
then if you. It could be based on, I know a popular word part of the show tonight was agenda. Mm-hmm. It could be made on personal agendas and not necessarily the score itself. And something else you said too, I mean, you brought up some people tonight and them having a problem. They didn't have a problem with the records then, but all of a sudden have a problem with it now. And again, there's more to it than just that. However, I'm from my standpoint, like I said, I'm an outsider. I'm always going to go back to the old verification system.
Sure.
And the witnesses that were there, the way that it was verified and put into the record books by a referee, saw it happen, and then, like you said, you were there, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right, and if the new system is just so entirely different now, then perhaps just start over. Perhaps just start over and just say, all right, let's just wipe it clean. I don't want this, but perhaps just wipe it clean and say, okay, fine. All the new records are just starting fresh in 2018.
Yeah.
Is
that what it's going to come down to?
And is that what people want?
I don't know.
Because I don't, but maybe that is what people want.
Maybe it is. I don't know.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, that's been the show. I hope you guys got something out of it. We're just, we're just talk show hosts. We're going to rest our voice for about 90 seconds. And,
well, should we preview that we have, Michael Soroka coming on in a couple of weeks?
We do. Yeah. 2 weeks from today, Michael Soroka, at least him, maybe some others as well, but for sure, Michael Soroka, former host of Settled on the Screen, and somebody who does not line up directly with us. He's not completely opposed necessarily. I don't want to speak for him. He'll do that in 2 weeks, but he's maybe not directly opposed to what Bill has said today, but he is definitely not exactly what Adam and I just relayed either to everyone. So Mike Soroka will be on in 2 weeks from today. Tune in then. Tune in next week when we have a regular show of the X-Cast. And please, if you're not too tired, tune in tonight as Adam and I delve into the deep issue of cults. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yep. Good night, everyone.